Hello, I'm Locke Meredith with Legal Lines. I'd like to invite you to join me on our next show. We have the Treasurer for the entire state of Louisiana, John Kennedy, and he's also running for United States Senator. We're going to talk to John about the issues that he has faced as the state treasurer and the issues that he sees facing our nation right now. So join us on the next Legal Lines with John Kennedy. Welcome to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith, and I'm very pleased to have on the show John Kennedy. He is the Treasurer for the entire state of Louisiana. John, thank you so much.
Nice. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you coming on. Let's talk about, just give me a little personal information about yourself.
Well, I was raised in a little town north of Baton Rouge called Zachary. My dad was a small businessman. My mom was a retired school teacher and a housewife. I went away to college at Vanderbilt.
Really?
Yeah. Did a law degree at the University of Virginia.
Good schools.
Yeah, thanks. I clerked for a federal judge, and then I thought I wanted to teach, and I did another law degree after that at Oxford University in England.
Smart man.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty impressive
I didn't know what
stuff.
I wanted to do. And then I came home. I have two brothers who didn't come home. One of them lives in Charlotte. One of them lives in Seattle. They're not coming home. I wish they would. They're both physicians. I wish they'd come home, but they won't. Now, my wife, Becky's an attorney.
Is that right?
She doesn't practice. She works in the state court system over in St. Tammany Parish, where we live. We live in Madisonville. We have a little 8-year-old boy named Preston, named him after my late father. He goes to public school there. We're proud members of the North Cross United Methodist Church, a brand new church that we just started a few years ago there in Madisonville. We're small, but we're committed.
It doesn't matter, does it?
That doesn't matter at all. I've been state treasurer since 2000. Before that...
give me a little history on what you did.
Well, my first job in government, I was legal counsel to Governor Romer from 1988 to 1992.
Now, what do you do as legal counsel?
Just a little bit of everything. You know, you start out being the governor's lawyer, but you end up actually working as much in policy areas as you do in the law.
Become an advisor?
Yeah, I did a lot of work with the governor in terms of higher education, in terms of elementary and secondary education, health care.
Really?
It was a lot of fun. It was a great experience.
So the big issues facing the state still today,
yes,
frankly.
Yes. After that, I went back and practiced law in New Orleans for a little while.
What kind of law?
I did a lot of commercial litigation. I like practicing law. After 4 or 5 years, I frankly get a little bored with it. I like government. I mean, I love the policy. I came back in the government in 1996. I was appointed Secretary of the Louisiana Department of Revenue.
And what do you do as that?
Collect the taxes. You know, we collected, that was an appointment by the governor.
I'm not sure a lot of people like that.
No, and it's hard, you know, but you want to be fair. You want to be even-handed. None of us like to pay taxes, but most people
want the services.
They want the services, and they want to know that everybody's paying their fair share. No more, no less. And I tried to do that. We also started a program when I was at the Department of Revenue called Unclaimed Property, where we actually returned people's lost money to them. A state would get in misplaced funds, and we would actually return the money, and I think most taxpayers like that. I left the Department of Revenue in 1999.
Now, who appointed you?
Governor Foster.
Okay.
I left the Department of Revenue in 1999 and ran for state treasurer.
And won?
And won. It was a good race. It was clean. We talked about the issues.
That was your first run at a
Actually,
statewide office?
no, I had run in 1991 when I left Governor Romer's administration. I ran for Attorney General and came in third. Richard Ayub, Attorney General Ayub,
who I've had on here a couple
right,
times.
Good man.
Yes, he is.
We had a great race. I think there were 7 of us in that race, and I came in third, so it wasn't too bad for my first outing. Good show up in your first try. Learned a lot, had fun, but I like government. I mean, that's just, I like the policy. If I want to go to the office and read about the Medicaid program in Florida, or about alternative fuels in California, what they're doing out there, if I want to study the president's new immigration policy and learn about that, I can do that in government. As you know, practicing law, you don't have that luxury.
No,
you have to represent your client's interest, and they're paying you to work for them. That's why I do it.
Tell me your duties as state treasurer. What do you do?
Well, some people think that the state treasurer is the state's chief financial officer, and that's not really true. The CFO of the state is the commissioner of administration, who is appointed by the governor. The treasurer is really the state's chief banker. and here's what I do.
Interesting.
Yeah. We have a fiscal division in my office. We manage a $19 billion cash flow. And by that I mean the money comes in from the Department of Revenue, it goes over the Division of Administration, and then it comes to us, and we make sure that every agency has its money, no more, no less, when it needs it, on a periodic basis.
So you dole out the money to the various agencies?
And it sounds, in concept, it's simple.
I bet people fight about that.
But they do fight about that, and sometimes we have disagreements in terms of how much money is due an agency this month. We also have a lot of special accounts, and as you can imagine, we have more than one checkbook for the state. But we're all computerized, but it gets complicated to make sure everybody has the right amount in the right time.
Are you involved in the debt financing or the investment of the monies at the state?
Yes.
Explain that.
Both of those things.
That's pretty important stuff.
I manage $3.5 billion, which is money in state trust funds, savings accounts. We have a savings account, a trust fund for education, for health care, for the top scholarship program. We invest that money in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, securities, and generate extra money for health care and education that way.
And what do you negotiate with the folks that you end up investing it with? Are you involved in that process?
I have 4 folks in my office who are investment professionals. They monitor the markets all day long. Every minute they're open, we're there. And we buy mostly fixed income investments.
Safer
stuff. Bonds, treasury bills, Ginnie Maes, that sort of thing. We every now and then we'll keep 10 to 15% of our money in stocks, usually index funds, just to balance things out. And you know, it's a lot of money, $3.5 billion to invest.
And how are each of those 3 trust funds doing right now?
They're doing great. Last year in our LEQTF, that's our education trust fund, we have just a tad over $1 billion in that trust fund. We had a 12% annual rate of return.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, in a really tough market.
That's right.
We didn't do it in stocks last year. We did it in bonds. We did it in bonds. But that money's important. We generated income of about $60 million, $30 million of which went to the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education.
And they do what with it?
They put it into programs like tutorial programs to help kids pass the LEAP tests, teacher mentoring programs. Half the money went to higher education, and they'll use that money to seek matching private funds to endow chairs to attract top-flight faculty members.
In higher education and the universities.
Yes, to our colleges and universities. So this money is well spent. It's important that we invest the principal properly to generate the money for them.
What I'd like to do on the next segment is talk about the other 2 trust funds and the status, and then we'll get into the Senate race.
Great. Let's do it.
This is Locke Meredith with Legal Lines, and John Kennedy. We'll be right back. He is the treasurer for the entire state of Louisiana, and he's running for the United States Senate. Again, John,
thanks, Locke.
Appreciate you being on.
Good to be here.
We're talking about the trust funds, and there's 3 of them. We talked about the educational trust fund. Let's talk about the other 2 and how they're doing.
We have a tobacco settlement trust fund.
Right, Richard's talked about that.
Yes, we sold 60% of our tobacco settlement income stream from the tobacco companies. They paid us off over time when we settled the lawsuit.
In a lump sum.
We took a lump sum. We sold it through what they call a tobacco securitization. We put about $1.1 billion into a trust fund, so if the tobacco companies go broke, we've got our money. We invest that money, and 1/3 of the earnings go to health care, 1/3 to education, and 1/3 of the earnings go to fund the top scholarship program.
Which is
our scholarship program for kids who do well in high school. We will pay their way to go to one of our universities if they maintain a certain grade point.
It's an amazing program.
Yeah, it really is.
Is it going to change? I mean, is that money going to be there? Based on what you see sitting in the...
Listen, I think the TOPS program is one of the smartest things the state ever did.
We're educating our kids.
We're educating our kids. It costs us about $111 million a year, and you know what? I hope it costs us $200 million a year.
Because that means more using it.
Absolutely.
And we have an educated workforce, and they stay here, hopefully, because we got the jobs.
And even kids who don't get the top scholarships and try and don't make it, they're better off because they've taken tougher courses in high school. It's just been a wonderful program. So the way we invest that money to fund that program is important.
What about the other trust fund?
The other trust fund is called our Medicaid Trust Fund. It has about $900 million in it. That money, the earnings from that money go to, as you would expect, health care, institutional care, nursing homes, that sort of thing. But we also do spend some of the money through DHH on community health centers as well.
Now, I know there was a lot of talk months back about having to mess with the charity systems and everything because the funds weren't there. Is that related to the lack of this fund generating the income necessary, or what was the rub?
No, we've done our job. We've had pretty good earnings there. The amount of money that we get from the federal government in our Medicaid program can vary each year, and that really is the biggest determining factor with how well our charity system is funded.
So unless the feds send us the money, we got a problem.
When they don't send us money, well, we have to put up our share, but we match what they send and get a little extra from them. And when they're having tough times in Washington, we have tough times here too. And it really impacts us disproportionately because we have so many folks who are poor in Louisiana and can't afford health insurance. I'll give you a statistic.
I'll tell you what, it's not just poor folks who can't afford
Well, I know. It's going up for all of us.
It's incredible.
But in a state of 4.5 million people, we have 900,000 who really are too poor to be sick. They have no insurance, no Medicaid because they have a job. They're not poor enough. No Medicare because they're not old enough, and they either can't buy the insurance through their private employer or they can't afford it.
It's a really tough situation.
Huge.
And the federal government's going to have to do something about it. Let's talk about your duties in terms of the debt management for the state.
I'm chairman of what we call the State Bond Commission. That's a commission. The governor sits on it, lieutenant governor, attorney general, representatives of the House and Senate, and all state and local debt. If the state wants to borrow money, if the local government wants to borrow money, they've got to come to the Bond Commission. And it's our job to say, look, why are you borrowing the money? How are you going to pay it back? Are you using it for a good purpose? And we've got to approve all debt. That's the way we control our debt. I'm chairman of that commission, and I'm responsible for the staff that does the fiscal analysis on the proposed bond issues. And look, it's important because states like families, like businesses have to borrow money. You just want to make sure that you're not borrowing too much and that you can pay back every penny.
And you negotiate, I guess, with the guys who loan you the money, huh?
Absolutely.
What are the sources of money borrowed by a state?
In almost all cases, we will do a public bond issue. In other words, we'll put out the word. It's a little more complicated and formal than that, but we'll go to the capital markets in New York and say, the state of Louisiana this year wants to borrow $200 million.
So you're signing a promissory note.
That's right. Give us your best shot. And we will invite the different investment bankers to bid. Give us your best interest rate. And one of the things I've started doing at the Bond Commission, we now allow them to submit bids over the Internet. It's almost like eBay.
Interesting.
And we'll say from 10:30 to 11 o'clock, we're going to solicit your best offer to loan us $200 million at your best interest rate. And those bids will start coming in at 1 minute until 10 o'clock, and they'll be close. But when you're borrowing $200 million, even a little bit makes a huge difference in the amount of money that we have to pay back.
Do you ultimately, because the rates have dropped so much over the last few years, do you refinance debt? I guess, huh?
All the time. We've done a lot of refinancings at both the state and local level the last 2 years as rates have fallen, just like a lot of folks have refinanced the mortgage on their home and saved a lot of taxpayer money.
Let's talk about the new governor, Governor Blanco. We were talking during the break, a lot of issues.
Yeah.
State always seems to have a lot of issues. What do you see as the big issues right now?
Jobs. No question about it. America needs jobs. The state needs jobs. We're not only losing jobs now to other states, but we're losing them to other countries. We've read about it, China, India, Malaysia.
A great swishing sound.
Absolutely. It's a huge problem for Louisiana. It's a problem all across America, but the global economy's hit us hard.
I'll tell you what's interesting is I heard Dr. Scott, the economist, talking about because of the high cost of natural gas that we're going to start losing these monster refineries we have here.
And those petrochemical jobs are about 50,000 a year. It's the price of natural gas. There's some things we can do, like liquefied natural gas. We're working with Freeport-McMoRan to build a processing plant in South Louisiana now, where you can bring in gas from other countries. It's liquefied, and then you turn it back into a gas. course, you don't build one of those overnight, but that'll provide a little relief.
I think I heard him talking about it. It's going to take, what, 10 years to construct it? And
but I'm very worried because petrochemical, those are good jobs. There are about 30,000 of them out there. It's kind of a good base.
Ton of taxes, too.
Ton of taxes. If we start losing those jobs, and once those plants move, now they won't come back for a long, long time, if ever.
So what do we do other than, I guess the only options are help them get the gas here cheap and reduce their cost to do business here.
Reduce their cost to do business. Tax incentives. How can we help get a little government off your back? Because the more government regulation you put on the business, that affects its bottom line. Help them with the market their products. A lot of what we call moral suasion. Just hang in there. You know, you don't want to leave Louisiana. Yeah, you might be able to do business a little cheaper elsewhere, but gosh, you know, the quality of life here is good.
We love it.
We love, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of that. And a lot of these folks, they don't want to leave. You know, they want to stay in Louisiana. This is a wonderful state, but so there's a lot of hand-holding that goes into it, but that's part of it.
What's the number 2 issue for the state?
Health care.
For the country, huh?
Yeah. Rising cost of health care. Too many people who can't afford health insurance. Rising cost of prescription drugs.
What do you do?
Well, there are a couple things we can do. We can get help from Congress first. I'm convinced that the national solution is going to have to come from Congress. It's not a single socialized system like Canada has, in my opinion. I think what Congress ought to do is provide tax credits to the working poor to buy health insurance.
Let's talk about that on the next segment, and frankly, what you want to do if elected as a United States Senator for the state of Louisiana. It's Locke Meredith with Legal Lines and John Kennedy, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith, and again, very pleased to have on the show John Kennedy. He's currently the treasurer for the state of Louisiana, and he's running for the United States Senate. Again, John, thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Let's talk about what you would do as the senator for the state of Louisiana in the United States Congress.
Well, first, people are entitled to know why I'm running. You know, it's the first question you
ask.
It
really was what a.
Yeah, you need to ask a question that the first thing you ask a candidate. I think now more than ever, Louisiana needs a very aggressive voice in Washington. We're losing a lot of seniority.
Boy, are we.
I'm going to be a U.S. Senator for all the people of the state, those of us who can take care of ourselves, and frankly, those among us who need a little help getting by. Most Louisianians get up every day, they go to work hard, pay their taxes, obey the law, they try to do right by their kids, but a lot of them are very worried. Some of them are really scared. They're asking themselves questions like, will I have a job next week? Can I afford to get sick? Will I ever be able to retire? Is my child getting a decent education in his school?
The American dream.
Absolutely. And it's in jeopardy. And those are the kind of issues I'm going to work hard on every day. Those are the kind of issues I'm going to talk about in this campaign. I'm going to talk about how we can create some jobs for the state and how we can start the process of fixing our health care delivery system.
And how do you create jobs for the state as a United States Senator? Do you get the feds to send us money or help us develop our economy? What do you do?
Well, this is what I do. And this will work for Louisiana and for America. We're going to have to do something to shock this economy. It's recovering. It's just the jobs aren't being created. Here's what I think we ought to do. We ought to tell our business people, the smallest small business and the biggest corporation, for every net new job you create over the next 2 years, we will send you a check for 25% of the federal income taxes paid by that new employee.
So a tax break.
A tax
break. Cut the taxes.
But what would make this break different?
But it's accountable.
It's accountable. It's not complicated. It would apply to the big companies, but also to the small businesses. It would apply if you created 100 jobs at $50,000 a year, but also if you were a small business and created 1 job at $30,000 a year. You wouldn't have to be in an enterprise zone. It wouldn't have to be in a particular cluster. It could be any job.
Anybody can.
There wouldn't be 50 pages of regulations. This has worked, Locke, at the state level in Virginia, North Carolina, New Jersey, and Ohio. It doesn't cost you anything because these are jobs you wouldn't have otherwise. So you're not using up tax dollars, if you will. These are brand new jobs. And I predict it'll work for America.
Has anyone proposed this in the Congress yet?
No. It's been proposed at the state level. We tried it at the national level for a couple of years back in the late 70s.
Didn't work?
No, it did work.
Why wouldn't they do it again?
There are a lot of members of Congress that don't like the idea of tax credits. And quite frankly, there are a lot of members of Congress that think the answer is to tax businesses even more as opposed to give them a break. Maybe in the economy back then, well, I didn't agree with that back then, but my point is we live in a different economy today. It's a global economy today. We're not only competing with other states and Canada, and we're competing with China and India, the whole world. So the cost of doing business in America matters even more today than it did 20 or 30 years ago, and it mattered then.
And depending on how strong our dollar is, the ability to sell it overseas.
Absolutely. I mean, China doesn't let its currency float like America does, so they already have a built-in advantage that we've got to compete against.
And their people don't get paid anything anyway.
No.
Amazing.
It is amazing.
What do you think about the war?
I think we had to fight it. I wish we had gotten more help going in. I'm not saying that's anybody's fault. It's just clear that some of our allies weren't there when we needed them.
Well, that's the truth.
We are there now. We can't cut and run, in my opinion, not only because we owe it to the Iraqi people, but because other countries are watching us. And you know, if we cut and run on this, they're going to wonder about the resolve of the American people.
And we talked about Spain during the break.
Absolutely.
The fact that they apparently reacted to a terrorist act does nothing but pour fuel on the fire.
You cannot give in to terrorism. You cannot give an inch.
In fact, 2 weeks later, they found another bomb on another train.
Yes.
So it served no purpose at all.
And I've talked to a lot of folks who have a lot more expertise in terrorism than I do, but they tell me the folks that do this, they're not rational. They don't respond to reason. They respond to one thing: force, power, resolve. You know, we're not going to give in, and we can't give in. I would say that I hope, and I'd like, if I'm a United States Senator, I'm going to ask the Iraqi people to help us rebuild Iraq.
I think that's extremely reasonable.
Their oil reserves are deep.
That's right.
And they need to do their fair share. The American taxpayer shouldn't pay the whole freight.
What is the plan in that regard right now? Or is that an issue that's discussed?
I don't think they have one right now because they're just trying to quell the violence. And it's day to day. We've lost a lot of American lives. It's going to be a while, I think, before we get control. Again, some of our allies have not been there when we needed them. We need to go back to them and say, hey, you know, this. If you think this just impacts us, you know, terrorism is worldwide now.
That's right.
But I think if we continue to do that, we'll have a solution. We'll get the Iraqi people back on their feet. I think they can support a democracy. I think that once they taste freedom, they'll find that it's the greatest system of government in the world.
Wouldn't that be wonderful that we'd created democracy over there?
But we've got to do it in a way that respects their religion,
That's right,
their culture, their mores. But I believe this: if they once taste freedom, they'll see that there's just a capitalist society and just a representative form of government that they'll like it.
What are the other big issues facing the nation?
I think another huge issue is roads. You know, I'll tell you.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we've got 16,000 miles of roads in Louisiana. Actually, 17,000 now. 4,000 miles of them are bad. Yet, gasoline prices go up. Our people are paying 18.4 cents federal gasoline tax. But for every dollar we send in federal gasoline tax to Washington, we're only getting back 88 cents in return. Now, New York gets back $1.21 for every dollar they send in. Pennsylvania, $1.17. Arkansas, $1.02. Mississippi gets back 98 cents. We're getting back 88 cents.
Wow, what's the formula? Where are we screwing up?
Politics, their formula at the federal level, nobody understands it. My first bill, I'm going to introduce a bill that says every state gets back at least 97 cents out of every dollar it sends in federal gasoline tax to Washington, which will mean an extra $55 million for Louisiana. We can use that income stream to bond it out, borrow money, generate about $450 million, and fix some of those 4,000 miles of bad roads.
What about health care?
Oh boy, we've got to do something.
Just a short time.
We got to start with prescription drugs, the cost of prescription drugs.
And what do you do?
In my opinion, I think if you believe in free trade, you need to act on your belief. I think that the American people ought to be allowed to import drugs made in the United States but sold in Canada from Canada. It is the same drug. It's a drug that's made in the United States. It's the same packaging. It's the same manufacturer. The only difference is the price. It's about 40% cheaper. Right now, and look, I'm not against our manufacturing companies who make drugs. They're great. I hope they continue to make new drugs.
It's time to be competitive and fair.
You got it.
John, thank you so much for being on the show.
A lot of fun,
appreciate it. Let's get you back in.
Thank you.
This is Locke Meredith Legal Lines and John Kennedy. We'll see you next time.